All right. Thank you, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with this week's meeting. Thank you for coming. So here's a bit of our schedule for the rest of the quarter. Today we have Myles and Cole talking about crypto and the crypto hackathon. The next week we have a programming basics workshop, going through like the different data types and stuff and the basics of programming so that you can apply to any language that you want to learn. And then week 4, we have a representative from the 21st group, more about sports analytics there. And then there is going to be a concentration panel week 5, so we won't have a meeting. And then week 6, we will have a representative from the Federal Reserve talking about how they use analytics there. So just an announcement, board applications for QUAC are live. We have 4 positions that we're trying to fill: president, director of growth, director of membership experience, and director of finance. So if you are interested in applying, feel free to scan the QR code, and we'll also send a link in the email we send out tomorrow.
So as many of you guys may know, QUAC offers some graduate programs. So if you're interested in getting an MBA, a master's in business analytics, or a master's in quantitative economics, the information sessions are on these dates. And the priority deadline is February 1st. So if you're interested, then
and then we also have concentration panels that are still going on this quarter. The quant one is coming up February 15th. So if you're interested in quant at all, I highly recommend going just so you can ask all your questions. The OCOP Club Fair is this Thursday. So if you're interested in finding out more about different OCOP clubs, like QUAC, finance, AMA, anything like that, stop by the Breezeway from 11 to 1.
Yeah, and peer advising actually just went fully virtual. They have office hours. You can join them on Zoom on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., Tuesday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., and Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. The Zoom link you can find on the OCOP Student Services website. And essentially what they do is just help you with your scheduling classes. And as always, feel free to reach out to us, stay connected with us, whether that's through Instagram at CalPolyQuack, our Gmail at cpquack@gmail.com. Feel free to reach out to us there. And if you scan the QR code on the right, it'll bring you to our mailing list where you can fill out some info and be caught up on all the events we're having in the future.
And check our YouTube where we normally will post speakers.
And we'll be recording this meeting, so this will be up there hopefully by tomorrow.
And if there's something you'd like to see or you have like any general suggestions for us, you can let us know through our description box.
All right. So now today we have Myles and Cole. I'll let them introduce yourselves. Myles, you can go first.
Hey guys, Myles. This is my second time speaking at QUAC, and very happy to be here.
I'm Cole. I have never spoke here, but I'm a good friend of Myles. Software engineer by trade. I actually have since left my job at Spatial to kind of dive into crypto and Web3 and all those buzzwords full time, which I can go into in more detail. But that's the quick intro.
Z, let me know. So my sort of general framework for this call should be, I want it to be as much of like a conversation back and forth between your club and Cole and I as possible. What I think would be a good framework would be for Cole and I to talk a little bit about our backgrounds and how we balance sort of interests in Web3, crypto, blockchain topics, and for me personally, a normal W2 job, and Cole is sort of full in on going down that rabbit hole. So if that makes sense, I can start off. I can give a sense of like how I got into the space, why I'm really interested in it, and why I spend so much time outside of my typical W2 startup job that I currently have focused on it. So if that's cool with you, Z, I'll go ahead.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
All right, great. So and I apologize if you guys heard me speak like last year about my background, but I'll go through it again. So I graduated from Princeton in 2015 with a hodgepodge degree from the Woodrow Wilson School, which has now been rebranded as International Affairs and Public Policy. I say hodgepodge because it was really a combo of history, political science, economics, sociology. So a nice like melting pot of all the liberal arts in one thing. And then from there went into investment banking, much like a lot of my class who didn't really know what they wanted to do, but had a sense that they wanted to cut their teeth doing something business, something quantitative, something analytical. I spent a year and a half doing typical M&A investment banking work. And through that experience, learned one, I'm very bad staying up late at night trying to work. Two, Excel and PowerPoint skills, while they stunk to learn and were like very annoying and took up a ton of time, have served me very well until this day. And I also got a really good background in investing and how companies work at like a more high level conceptual scale. After I finished up my banking tenure, which ended somewhat tumultuously, the bank ended up laying off a bunch of the analysts for mostly they just didn't really need us. And so I left with a great severance package and had a lot of time to figure out what I wanted to do next, and found myself working. I got recruited to join this little startup, this little financial consultancy group that was doing turnaround projects for nonprofits in the New York City area. And the nonprofit that we were helping out was this company called the Data and Marketing Association. So our first client, and really our only client, we were only a team of 3 people, was this big trade organization, which at the time was really just trying to bring in a bunch of stakeholders from ad tech and marketing technology companies to help them think through data. This is when GDPR was coming into the fold, which is a whole the whole rabbit hole I won't get into, but it was all about data and all about how do people manage data, how are all of our data assets from a consumer's point of view on the internet being used by the big garden walls, which are Apple, Facebook, Google, etc. So I got thrown into this world of helping them think through their business. And through that experience, I got introduced to a blockchain company, which our little consulting group was tasked with helping our client think through a partnership with them. And through that, that partnership and me and the other 2 guys trying to help them think through what can we do with this blockchain company, I got a lot of exposure to people that were really deep in crypto. And this was in end of 2017, when the first crypto bull run was kind of full steam ahead. And I, for lack of a better term, this is a very like crypto term, aped into crypto at that point. And I had a nice amount of severance savings from the investment banking job, and a lot of that went into crypto. And so I was sort of learning through investing, probably a little bit irresponsibly, but it sort of worked out in a lot of different ways. And it was through that sort of experience I got really excited about the opportunity for consumers to own and have sovereignty over their attention and how they monetize their attention. So as in today's world, Google, Facebook, they're all sort of taking your eyeballs and selling ad dollars against it, making money using your attention. And in today's Web3 paradigm, which has totally changed that, it's taken me 6 or 8 months to fully even understand what Web3 crypto native assets really mean. And it's all about putting, allowing you to accrue value for yourself by paying attention to stuff that's happening on the internet. And we can talk more about that later. But so through that experience, I started to get super interested in crypto, and I decided not to go full time in crypto. At the time, I didn't know how to, but I made this sort of outside of work. It became my habit, my hobby, my interest of reading white papers, of figuring out what all this means from a very non-technical point of view. I'm not a software engineer, I've never done software engineering. I am, in Cole's eyes, junior web dev forever. And so I have kept that going for a while. And so since my time working at that consultancy, I then switched jobs and became the director of finance and strategy at a startup called Bamcor, which is where I met Zuhair and Adrian. I was there for 3 years, helped scale the company from 10, 15 people up to, I think they're now like 50 people, and have a large manufacturing facility in Florida. That company was, and still is, creating bamboo wood hybrid panels that are structural members in buildings, which is super cool. Whole idea is they're taking really green materials and bringing them into the built environment, which is awesome. I recently left about 4 months ago to join another startup called Zone 7. And Zone 7 is much more in the data space. We are a machine learning software platform that allows professional sports organizations, think Liverpool, Manchester United, Arsenal, a bunch of other soccer teams, and NFL teams, NBA teams, aggregate all their data, and then generate sort of automated insights to help them manage their players' health, reduce injury risk, and create training plans that will optimize performance given certain play time. And so I'm chief of staff for them right now, and that just means I help out with anything the company needs help with. And specifically right now, I'm working on some big data security stuff around what's called SOC 2, and that's all about how we keep data and user information safe within our own company. And so just bringing this back to the Web3 tilt that I'm trying to keep for this call, I spend probably more than 50% of my time outside of work, just like looking into crypto, thinking about crypto. I try not to trade, although I sometimes fall into the trap of trading and contributing. I'm now part of a DAO with Cole, as well as I'm trying to build a guild in another GameFi world. And so one of the things I'll say is it's been very hard to balance those interests. And I'm continuing to try to do those things because I'd like to keep a balance in my life, both financially and time-wise. I think Cole and I might have slightly different opinions on that, just because he's done something differently. And I'm very interested to hear what Cole has to say. But so I do all sorts of stuff in crypto, and it's a big reason why I wanted to put out this bounty was sort of another way that I could contribute to the space. And is definitely a big ethos around crypto is you just sort of contribute your time, attention, and your money, and you can actually accrue value to the general ecosystem as a whole. And as you do that, the underlying protocols and assets that make up the crypto world will also become more valuable in their own ways. So yeah, that's a bit about me, and sort of brings me to the present and why I wanted to do this bounty. I thought it'd be really cool to get students to think about how to build something like this. I think the solutions are probably out there, and I think you guys can probably do it. And if I could incentivize that in some way and onboard people into Web3 and maybe red pill you guys a little bit, that would be a pretty cool thing to do. So yeah, that's mine. Cole, it'd be great to get your story and how you swallowed the red pill, and anything else that you think would be interesting.
Yeah. So, I graduated from Princeton with Myles. We were good friends, played on the soccer team together. Right after school, I graduated with a computer science degree and joined LinkedIn as a software engineer, which was a pretty, if you're graduating with a computer science degree, joining a big tech company made a lot of sense. I had a great time there, but wanted to go to something smaller. And so after 3 years of doing that, tried to do actually a startup with Myles for a brief second, but we disbanded that, and I joined this company called Spatial, which was pretty early at the time. It was focused on VR collaboration, and we learned a lot there, and ultimately a lot of the, I think, VR market was a little early at that time, and kind of Spatial has since pivoted much more into the Web3 world and kind of supporting NFT art galleries as like one of its biggest use cases. But over the past year, I've gotten really interested in kind of the ideas of Web3 and how the blockchain can really do a lot of great things for, I think, products that hopefully will be built over the coming years. But I, started spending more and more of my free time in the space, trying to learn, and ultimately kind of just got so bought in that I wanted to kind of quit my job and just learn full time for a little bit. So ended up quitting in October and kind of allocated myself a few months of just diving in, learning as much as I could in the space, both as a user, but also as a programmer. So that's kind of where I'm at today. I'm kind of doing, I've got like a couple small project-based things that I'm doing, which is smart contract development kind of on Ethereum. I think, it's very easy for me to start using words that people won't understand. So I'm curious, like, if I may just quickly do like a little, like, how many people here have heard of Ethereum and know what Ethereum is? Okay, that's good. So yes, the language that you write kind of code for Ethereum is Solidity, and I kind of started by doing Solidity tutorials. And Ethereum's the biggest at the moment kind of blockchain for kind of developing custom programs, which are called smart contracts, and is what's powering a lot of, I think, the mainstream interest in NFTs and DeFi, decentralized finance. So yeah, I would say similar to what Myles alluded to, just like quickly on the vision, I think it's really powerful that you can have these applications that people can use in a permissionless manner, which effectively means that I can engage with the blockchain and nobody can tell me I can't, and I can engage with it in the way that it's coded, and no centralized source can kind of change that or collect data on me and then sell it and like all that kind of stuff, which is where a lot of the excitement, I think, comes compared to quote unquote Web 2, which was kind of dominated by the Googles and the Facebooks. Yeah, so from like a, kind of maybe turning this more into like a data, I guess, yeah, what I think is kind of the interest of the group. I'm curious, have any of you heard of Dune.xyz? So yeah, I'll kind of, I think one thing that's really interesting about kind of the blockchain space right now is that the way that Ethereum works is it has all of these transactions that have been cemented and put on this quote unquote public ledger, and all of that can never be changed and is also publicly viewable. And so from like a data analysis perspective, it's actually quite an interesting problem, and there's a lot that you can work with because a lot of things are public. And I would say from thinking about, like, I don't know, if you're interested in doing some sort of data analysis on Twitter, like it's actually hard probably to get all of the data that you need. But okay, so coming to Dune.xyz, it's a pretty cool product that has built kind of like a way to write SQL that queries the blockchain, and you can very easily put together pretty awesome dashboards and queries. I think it's like, similar to like Tableau, but kind of built on Ethereum in a way. So yeah, Myles is showing a few here.
I'm showing so this is a website that I use quite often. It is a Dune dashboard that someone built for a NFT gaming ecosystem that I am a part of. And it's very cool because, so like Cole has alluded to, there's no permission. You just interact with an API, you get all the data you need from a public blockchain, and you can do anything you'd like with it, which is very cool. And so this is something called EtherWorks. I urge anyone in this who enjoys like long format board games with a financial tilt to go check it out. But this has essentially all this is made in Dune, and just leverages all the data from the blockchain and the smart contract that users, me, interact with when making actions and transacting in that game.
Cool. Yeah. So I think, I'm not really a data scientist by training, more of a software engineer. But a lot of, I think, what's kind of fueling the industry and is like part of the development of certain products that you can use kind of on Ethereum is also just understanding what's happening, and there's a lot that kind of needs to be built in that space. But yeah, I kind of want to, I could talk more about Dune and SQL and how that could work, but I'm curious either, from the group or Myles, like, is there anything specific that we want to dive into at this point, or any sort of themes that I could touch on?
There's no questions from us. I guess one question I had was like, could you go deeper into the difference between Web 3 and Web 2?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Or I can start, Myles.
Yeah, start off, and I'll add, because I think you probably have a broader grasp.
Yeah. So I mean, this is fresh. Being a developer and working at startups and LinkedIn, you also kind of think a lot about the product. Being in the tech industry, it's very clear how kind of these kind of big companies have amassed a ton of value, mainly by just collecting data on all of you and us when we use the product, and selling that sort of information to advertisers and a whole host of people. And so I think one of the easiest reasons to understand why Web3 can be better for users is kind of through this lens, which is Google operates servers that stores all this data when you kind of search for stuff and click on links and stuff. And Google owns those servers and owns that data and can make money off of that. What's interesting about Web3 is that for the most part, Ethereum's the biggest, although there's lots of other blockchains that are different in other ways and trying to do similar things. But let's just use Ethereum as an example. That data is stored on Ethereum and not in Google's servers. And the kind of, the underlying mechanics of this revolution is that Ethereum uses complex kind of, I guess, like economically incentivized code to have a decentralized state of like what data to store, is like, I guess, a super high level glimpse into it. And so since it's decentralized, there's no one person that can say that they own that data and sell it. And everyone kind of participating in the system is incentivized to act truthfully and to do the right things according to how it's coded, if that makes any sense. So as a user, you effectively can potentially modify data that's yours on this shared state, and no one can change that. And you do that through like a wallet. I don't know, has anyone here heard of MetaMask? So MetaMask is one common, it's called like a wallet that you can use to kind of interact with the Ethereum blockchain. You are the only person that can act as what's called like an address, which is effectively just an account. And you are the only one that can modify the data that's associated with that account. So like, imagine if instead of, your Google account, you have a Gmail password that you can log into. Like, if Google actually can't see or modify any of your emails, but you were able to use Gmail as like a software, that's kind of, I think, one sort of analogy that you could say is that if there's the next Google, which is built on the blockchain, you can have a guarantee that they can't do anything with your email. Maybe they can't see it because it's encrypted. And there's a lot of exciting things about kind of this new paradigm, which is really, I think, focused on the users having control over their data rather than the big corporations or the products that are built having control over the data. That's what I would say is kind of the biggest difference between Web 2 and Web 3 in my mind.
I think from my point of view, one of the biggest things that I have just experientially understood to be the biggest difference between the Web 2 paradigm, Web 3 paradigm is the concept of ownership, which I touched on before. It took me way too long, and I missed a huge boom in NFTs somewhat, because I really couldn't grasp the point of owning a JPEG. Have any of you heard this saying, like, copy and paste? Why does it matter if you own a JPEG? Everyone can see it. Anyone can interact. Okay. It has taken me a really long time to wrap my head around why this concept is important, but I do think it's really important. I think it's a really great microcosm for where Web3 sort of is and where it's going. And I point to this like bad copy paste, like right click, save thing. And the point is, whereas in Web 2, there is no concept of user ownership. When you do anything in an application built on Web 2, everything is owned by the entity that owns the thing that you're interacting with. And they can extract as much value from the users as they want. And honestly, it's been really great. There's a ton of benefits to that kind of centralized model. Applications are very fast. They can optimize very quickly for certain things. And honestly, there's great leverage in advertisement. I now get, if I go on Instagram, I get exactly what I think that I want. It's very scary. Anyways, the point that I'm trying to make is, with the technology that is blockchain, you can own a digital asset. And that digital asset doesn't matter if everyone can see it. You can go to the Louvre and see the Mona Lisa. You can go online and see the Mona Lisa. So right now, I think the Louvre owns the Mona Lisa, but like imagine Starry Night or any of these other amazingly famous cultural pieces of art which are owned by some private investor. Like, you can go visit that art. Same thing with like a JPEG. You can go visit that in the browser and say, oh wow, that's nice, but you don't own it. And you couldn't own it before the blockchain because there's no immutable permissionless way to track who owns anything other than just the entity that like has your attention at any given time, sort of owns your data. Now you can own things like JPEGs, and it's just a transaction on the blockchain that everyone has agreed to, and there's consensus around. And that's like pretty mind blowing to like change the way of thinking to orient around that, because all of a sudden you have infinitely scalable assets that I could trade with you in a second. And when you think about how to evaluate like a house or something that generates income, like a rental property or a piece of art in real life, those things have constraints that digital assets just don't, because of the very nature of them being digital, which is very, very cool. And because you can like scale these digital assets to the outer edges of the internet on the planet, you can do coordinated things with other people. So I own the set of JPEGs called EtherWorks, and they have a specific utility, which is part of the application that, and the smart contract, which is what Cole alluded to earlier, which generates some other assets, another token called Zug. This is sounds silly, but it's this GameFi thing that's currently really popular within the crypto space. So you own these assets which are generating revenue for you. that is a total new paradigm shift. Anyone can do it. You don't have to be a multimillionaire to own a rental property in San Francisco now to make money on an asset. You don't need to go through banks and these hurdles to do certain things. It's just all on the internet and completely scalable. And anyone in the world can own these things. So I think that is very cool. And one of the other things I'd mention is around social coordination. There's a lot of times where it's not zero sum. Like you can work together with other people who own these digital assets to create more value for the ecosystem. And by doing that, you can create this sort of virtuous flywheel where if you're creating more marketing or you're creating stories about your art or NFTs, other people might be interested in that sort of set of NFTs or those digital tokens. And the more that you evangelize your own ecosystems, the more valuable that they get. Whereas you could never do that on the internet prior. You could go and say, man, I love Instagram. You guys should all be on Instagram. You should be on Instagram. I'm going to share this invite to you on Instagram. And you're creating that virtuous feedback loop for Instagram and the people that own Instagram, but you didn't really see any economic value in that. So yeah, I think that's a really cool paradigm shift, which opens up a ton of opportunities for both people who want to be in it full time, as well as people like me who have not decided to go full time, but still interact with the blockchain, play some of these GameFi games, try to figure out strategies to make passive income, and contribute in other ways.
Do you have any like resources that you would recommend to us if we want to learn more about all of this? Like, is there any, I don't know, websites, books, podcasts, anything that you would recommend?
There are many. The answer is yes. And the format in which I give you them, I think will be more easily accessible if I write a bunch of stuff down and I give it to Z and Adrian. He can disperse it to the group after this call. There are a ton.
I'll say it's kind of weird, but like, you know, the source, it's so new that there's not like a textbook that's like, you know, the de facto textbook in the way that, you know, I'm sure you guys have textbooks that you're looking at that may have been written 20 years ago that are still up to date on biology or whatever. But like, you know, weirdly, like Twitter is something I spend a lot of time on for like, you know, and I consider it work because like that's where a lot of information is shared and where a lot of new things are being posted. I also spend a lot of time in Discord, which is like, you know, you end up finding groups of people that either, you know, it's some sort of product that's being built, they have a Discord, and that's where the community engages and you learn. So it's like, it's kind of, at least I found it weird because I'm used to learning things from, I would say, more quote unquote reputable or seemingly reputable sources. But yeah, I think, you know, just understanding that that's where a lot of this is happening is a good place to start. I'll continue answering this question, but I'm curious, like, how many of you are seniors or juniors, sophomores? Okay, freshmen.
Nice.
Cool. So yeah, you know, I think I you know, taking this into like, how can you learn more? How can you get involved? I think what's amazing about, you know, this industry is it's pretty, I feel like it feels opaque, but once you dive in, it's actually quite welcoming. And also to students, like you don't have to be, you know, working full time in the space to kind of like find yourself in a Discord, which is like, you know, a group of people who are interested in something. Like, you know, Myles, I'm sure, is in the EtherOrcs Discord, and there's a bunch of people in there that are, you know, are interested and talk about the strategy, and it's a great way to learn. And so I'd encourage, you know, for those of you that are interested, just to kind of like, you know, we'll send you some links on like people on Twitter and interesting products that we're interested. But also, you know, definitely if you find something, you know, Myles and myself are definitely open to talking about something, or if you have any questions that you want to send us, like, definitely do that. We're happy to almost pay it forward in a way that, someone got us into crypto and we see the possibilities and we're really interested in it. And we definitely want to bring kind of new interested folks into the space.
Yeah. Totally
So, yeah.
second that. Encourage outreach to, like, Z, feel free to give anyone my contact, and happy to do more of like a personal introduction to the space that might be more aligned with your own interests.
Yeah, and I guess specifically on maybe the like quantitative analysis aspect. If you have played with SQL at all, Dune is like literally SQL on the blockchain, and so that would be kind of a good place. You can get in their Discord, and you can follow them on Twitter and play with the product. I think they have pretty good tutorials. I haven't done too much with it, but it's like one of the de facto ways to do like analytics stuff on top of the blockchain.
Yeah.
And so even if you're coming from, I don't know, R or something, like SQL is not too hard, and you could start with a SQL course first and then go into that. But yeah, you don't have to kind of do more of those development things to kind of be involved in the space. And so there's tons of ways, and a lot of it is just kind of learning it first and trying to find some sort of thing that you're interested in. And if you find that, then that's the best way to kind of quote unquote dive down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. Which I think brings us to the project that I'm trying to put out there. This project comes from I think it's a problem that both Cole and I have, which is we transact pretty regularly on the blockchain, a lot of which is on Ethereum or other Ethereum integrated, other blockchains which integrate with MetaMask. That's like our main wallet, which we use. And it's hard to keep track of the US denominated prices at which we are transacting, because everything is typically in like your native currency in whatever ecosystem you're in. So maybe I'm trading from Ethereum to a token called Magic, for example, which is something I did yesterday, or ETH to something else. How do I track? Well, okay, you spend all that Ethereum, but what does it mean in US dollar value, both from a tax perspective as well as from a financial perspective? Am I literally just doing ruinous things to my own financial health? Or are these trades going in the right direction? And so I have not found a really easy like Google Sheet or filterable set of tools that help me to look at that, other than paid tax products. And so I think like a light version of those tax products, which I could use in a Google Sheet way, would be super valuable, not only to me, but to the like community as a whole. And the goal of this project is once we sort of dial it in, I would go around and share it with anyone who's looking for something like this. And that would be a really cool way to provide some value to the community. So yeah, how many of you are planning on trying to do a submission for the project, or have already done? I see 1, I see 2, I see 3, I see 4. Great. I and hopefully Cole, I have another friend who has also offered to help out with any sort of like technical questions. Like, I don't think we should do, so Z, we were talking about office hours, maybe doing like an office hours at some point. Maybe we just keep it sort of ad hoc. And if there's only 4 or 5 people that are doing the project, they can reach out directly to me, and I can set up time either with Cole or Cole. Dan is a big SQL guy and offered to help out with any SQL questions that any of you had to make this project a reality. So, and then obviously there's some ETH involved, and whoever sort of submits and can get some ETH, and the QUAC as a whole will get some ETH too. So pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. Just making it kind of ad hoc. They can reach out to you if they have any questions.
Sweet. Okay. Is it any like it doesn't sound like many of you have specific questions maybe, but after all of that spiel, is there anything that comes to mind as something you're interested in understanding more about? Maybe like crypto trading, games, metaverse, what does it all mean? What is money itself?
I had a question.
Yeah.
I've been getting pretty into NFTs recently, and I think just looking at the projects you see, I think we can all agree that like most, at least like 90% of projects will fail in the long run, just because they're kind of here only for the short-term gain. So my question is kind of, what do you look for before investing into a project? Like maybe one or two things.
Oh man, this is such a good question. So
Before
I-
Miles actually answers the question, I want to caveat that, like, you know, as you said, 90% of these will fail. So definitely be cautious. I would say it's
Yeah.
like peak scam season in NFTs, and definitely don't invest in anything that you can't afford and wouldn't be happy or wouldn't be okay with that going to zero. Cause I think that's the majority of what happens. And then there's the, you know, the newsworthy highlight pieces that make a ton of money for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But just want to say that that's definitely, you want to practice caution in.
totally agree. I think for me, so I have an opinion here, and my opinion is driven a little bit by my own tastes in NFTs. There's like a bunch of different kinds of NFTs. I would sort of put, there's a few categories that I think about. One is your classic PFP only NFTs. These are like your cool cultural phenomenons like Bored Ape Yacht Club, which sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And those are super cool and more of a flex than anything. Two would be your like art NFTs, photographs that are out there on the blockchain, paintings and digital art that have been created, sometimes with like AI involved, which is cool. And those are sort of like art for art's sake, which I think is another bucket. And then the last one is what I call utility NFTs. And I call them utility NFTs because you can do things with them in applications. And typically when you do things with the NFTs, and there's like a few very common things to do. One is staking. You stake the NFT, which takes it off of the market completely. When supply falls, if demand stays the same, price should go up. It sort of like is to the benefit of the ecosystem of those NFT holders. That's a classic thing. They typically have some sort of like financial return if you can spend the time and pay attention to the ecosystem and do those actions, whether or not they're in gameplay format or otherwise. My opinion is I'm not good at culture and I'm not good at art, but I do have a background in understanding like financial return and if something is fun, or also doing a pretty like gut check on is the community that's being built around these NFTs. And a lot of the value is driven from community, because the more that people's eyeballs are on something, the more that the value of the NFTs will grow. Is the community there for the right reasons, or are they just there to like shill their stuff and sell pretty quickly? So those are the three buckets I look at. And I really only focus on the last one, utility ones, because I don't really know how to evaluate the other two. But if you really like something, the other thing, like just treat it as art. Like if I bought something that's on my wall, I'm not expecting to resell it in a few years for a profit. And that's how I would think about the PFP and the art for art's sake NFTs. Cole, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, I would say definitely the PFP and art, like I wouldn't buy it with the intention of making a profit on it. You know, personally, one of kind of the reasons why I got into this space was through this company called So Rare, which is like fantasy sports, specifically soccer, meets NFTs, which has captured my imagination and interest. But yeah, I guess kind of like on factors of like, you know, if there's an upcoming NFT drop, like what do you look for? I think like the community is like a good thing if like you can often, the discords are wide open so you can get in and like you know, if it's, I think it's common that you'll just see people there to flip, which is like not necessarily a good sign. Like hopefully there's some sort of I don't know, product or something that's happening and not just like
Yeah.
people trying to do a cash grab with the NFT, which is happening a lot. And so like that's definitely one thing that I would look into and I would say to be cautious of. But I think the kind of more the better advice is just like if it captures your imagination and seems interesting and like you think that what they're building is cool, like that's a good reason. If if you're getting into it because you feel like it's a good flip opportunity, that's probably what everyone else is doing, and maybe you're the one getting flipped on. So like, that's I would advise against just like randomly buying random ones because a friend told you that, and their friend and their friend and their friend, like it's kind of that's a lot of I think what's happening, and you see these NFTs go up in value and then crater back down to zero. And so definitely if you have an interest in it and it seems cool, like that's a better reason than just trying to make money off of it.
All right, cool. I think it's about 12 o'clock right now, so we'll have to cut it there. Thank you, Cole and Myles, for coming.
Thank
Really appreciate it.
No problem.
And yeah, feel free to reach out to them. I'll put their emails in the follow-up email that we'll send out tomorrow. So thank you guys.
And
Thank you.